Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show Mindful Matters on Radio Al-Ansaar at 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. A show that promises to provide an hour of inspiration, information and motivation with me, your host, Nazia Iram Osman. Please feel free to participate in the show and make it interactive so we can learn and inspire each other by sharing our stories. Please WhatsApp your questions, queries, feedback or comments. The WhatsApp number is 060-904-1056. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. I just want to make a quick message, and it's a quick message to condolences to Fatima Kareem from the Al-Ansaar bookshop. Her father passed away and the funeral was today at Sparks Road Mosque at 11:30. Fatima, I hope Allah makes all of this easy for you and your family and grants the maroom the highest state in Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen. So our program for today is a bit different in that the others we've had so far, and this is in celebration of Women's Day. The topic chosen was transformation from pain to power. And as I told you, our show is about sharing stories, right? Our guest today, who I will introduce in a minute, has been through many challenges in her life, and these challenges are universal to us all. She has been through physical injury, relationship difficulties, divorce, death of loved ones, and single parenting. Yet she works with people every day with a smile on her face, helping them overcome their challenges with courage in her heart. And she has not just survived, but alhamdulillah has thrived from the difficulties that she has faced. So to share her story with us, we have Razia Rangrage. Welcome, Razia. And I commend you for the courage to not just overcome what you have, but also in coming to share your stories with us as to inform, motivate and inspire others.
Assalamu alaikum, Nazia, to you and the listeners, and Jazakallah khair for having me on your show. I am absolutely delighted and ecstatic to be here. Apologies for my voice. I seem to have a bit of the cold that doesn't want to leave me.
Right, I know that feeling. Hey, I think it's that part of the year. But Jazakallah again for coming, even though you were not feeling too well.
Ameen.
So Razia, I know you quite well, but I think our listeners need to know a little bit about you. Maybe you can just start off by telling them about the work that you do.
Okay, so in my practice, I actually help clients to relieve their pain and to gain more clarity. And I work on two levels, the physical level and the other is on the emotional and mental level. So alhamdulillah, I am now a cupping therapist for 7 years. I have trained and certified in Malaysia. And due to the demand and request of my clients, I now also offer cupping workshops as well. So on the physical level, I help clients with the use of cupping therapy. And there's various techniques. There's dry, magnetic, massage, and wet cupping. It's al-hijama, which of course is the best form, and it is the sunnah method of healing, where I personally believe that there is magic in it due to the many results and success stories. And alhamdulillah, I recently shared one on my YouTube channel of a 21-year-old female who got cured from Bell's palsy with cupping and an integration of energy healing as well. The cupping is strictly for females. Now, having said that, it is important to also note that when the body kicks out of physical pain or imbalance, it is the body's way of showing us that it needs some attention internally. And we have to take cognizance to that if we want to address it from the root level and not just manage the symptoms. And that's where the other level comes in, the emotional and mental level. I am a body talk practitioner for 4 years now, and with the use of life coaching and an integration of other energy healing modalities in sessions like Afia healing, sound healing, quantum touch, physical energetics, and chi therapy healing, just to name a few, I help clients to shift into a more positive vibration of frequency, helping them to shift their mindset and the way they view things and to release the negativity and the subconscious programming that creates your experiences. Reality is not reality. It is our interpretation of it. And according to those lenses which we view it, now we all have different colored lenses. Yours, Nazia, may be pink, mine may be green, etc. And according to those colors, we view and interpret our experiences. So I help clients to clear their lenses and to have more clarity. I also help clients to develop self-awareness, self-love, and emotional intelligence. And in turn, they are able to develop personal power. They can step into their true essence and step out of fear. And of course, it is like peeling the onion, layer by layer, helping them to grow into the best version of themselves.
Okay, so Razia, I mean, you shared quite a bit with us about the work that you do, and from what I've gathered is that I think there's an understanding that humans are energetic beings, and we're working physically and emotionally, and at many levels.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned a few, and I think cupping I know is sunnah, but body talk, afia healing. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that? How does that work?
So this is energy healing modalities. Body talk works on the premise that the body has the ability to heal itself. So when you get cut, you don't tell your body how to heal. It knows, and that's called the innate wisdom of the body. Body talk, how it also works is that if you and I are talking on a conscious level, that makes up 20%, and obviously you as a psychologist will understand this, and the whole underberg makes up 80%. So that's all our subconscious and unconscious mind, our programming, the triggers, things that we adopt from early childhood experiences, and they all get stored there, and those form our triggers. So as we go through life and we get triggered, remember, nobody has the ability to anger you. If you feel angry, that is a trigger within you, and you got to address that aspect within you. So in body talk, that's what we actually tap into, where the imbalance is sitting, because every organ in the body has a consciousness, and we work on that level in helping to eradicate that. And by clearing the imbalance internally, it helps the functioning of the body, hence promoting natural healing. And then afia healing and all the others that I bring in, basically every session is very different, and according to what your session may call upon, I will bring that in intuitively.
Okay, so I like the image that you brought up about triggers, because if something's not there or doesn't bug us, then no one will be able to trigger us. So almost when we get triggered, I like to use this analogy, the remote control is in somebody else's hand, right?
And you give your power away. Well said.
Right.
Yes.
And look, I'm so curious. Okay, I have an idea, but for our listeners' sake, why did you choose this kind of work?
Okay, so with the healing side, my maternal grandfather used to heal people for many, many years, and I think that filtered down. And through my mum's advice and guidance, I studied the art of cupping. Now, during my cupping sessions, clients would pour out the emotions and current reality, and I myself, at the time, in my personal journey, was also at a very low point, and it was like something was screaming out to me that I needed to do more in order to help myself and others. And I found body talk again through my mum, alhamdulillah. As my journey progressed, it took me to other energy healing modalities and courses. I didn't just jump into those courses, but I always checked with myself internally if I was in the right space for it, and for my practice as well. So in a nutshell, it was through my personal journey.
Right. And as a therapist, I hear what you're saying, that sometimes when we are not in the best of spaces, people will come into our space with similar issues, or sometimes we'll struggle with them, and that's why it's so important that therapists also go for therapy or focus on their healing and reflect and listen to themselves.
Absolutely, you can't serve from an empty vessel.
Right. And I think I think let's bring that up a little bit. You said, I know that you've been through some stuff in your life that has been quite challenging. And I think, I'm a big advocate of group therapy, because in group therapy, how we work is we share each other's stories. And by sharing those stories, not just how we coped and how we got out at the end, but the struggle of it, it brings up a common universal humanness in us and the understanding, and that's how we heal. Yes. So everything that we've been through, of course, is for some reason and for some growth.
There's khair in everything.
And I think a lot of the healers will tell you that, and I'm using healers very broadly, that it starts usually from childhood. Or there's some growth that happens. And I'm wondering whether you'd be open to sharing a little bit about your childhood with us. What was that like for you? What do you remember?
So childhood was, if I talk about it emotionally, alhamdulillah, very good support system, wonderful family, loving. But my challenges in childhood actually came from physical injuries. But I always somehow turned it into a positive outlook. And this I did innately. No one told me to do it. And then as I grew and journeyed into adulthood, then the emotional test began. And alhamdulillah, one of Rumi's quotes is, a candle cannot give light until it burns itself. So you have to go through that path in order to truly and genuinely help others, and that ties in with what you just said. So from physical to emotional, and this is the two levels that I mentioned I help my clients with at my practice. And most of the time, the clients that I attract, I can relate to, and not just a concept that, I can only imagine. So it began when I was 2 years old. My mom was ironing, and then she decided to keep the iron on top because I was crawling around. And of course, I saw the cord dangling, and I decided to pull it. And it ironed my 2 fingers, my shahada and the middle finger, but ironically leaving a crinkle on it for the rest of my life. And then while we were playing, I was always the leader of the pack when we were young, and we were playing in Sagro Center, which is a complex in Pietermaritzburg, and I decided to close that glass sliding door, and it slammed my finger. So I got a nice diamond-shaped middle fingernail as well. So for me, it meant that in preschool, when everybody was trying to learn their right hand to their left hand, the children needed a string around their hand, And I just had to look for my burnt fingers. So yay, the joy of being the first one who knew
keep your hands to yourself.
Yes, and then after that, I was in grade 1, and we were on a farm, and anyway, it's a story, but barbed wire got stuck into my toe. And it had to be literally ripped out. But for me, it was, yay, I could go to school in my new tackies, whereas everybody else needed to use their boring school shoes. And then I also got burnt on my thigh. It was Ramadan, and I wanted to help my mom make tea, so I decided to help her, and I dragged the teapot, which was on a saucer, out of the microwave, and it hit the tray, the microwave tray. Spilt on my leg. I had beautiful blisters, and every night it needed to be cleaned and dressed. And for me, it meant going to madrasa in a short skirt, whereas no other girl was allowed to do that. But the most testing one was in grade 11, when we went on excursion, and I went to Maritzburg Muslim School for Girls, and we went to a farm, and they had put up the Fufi slide the day before. And the entire school basically was lined up to go on this Fufi slide, but there was no safety harnesses, and there was nothing. It was just hard ground if you fell. Prior to me going, there was a girl that fell, and I said, oh, shame, imagine falling from that thing. My friends went, everybody was fine, they were having a ball of a time, and they said, Razia, your turn. And I said, no, I have a doubt, I shouldn't go. And they said, no, you're being silly. I said, see my hands, they're wet, I'm going to fall. And they said, just go. And the Appa gave me a hug, and I don't know why, but there was this hype, and the other grade 11 girls were also coming and giving me a hug and saying, your turn, your turn. And I think that peer pressure, but whenever I said, I have a feeling, I was head right. So anyway, I told them that, and they said I'm being silly. So my other friend went, and she cut the line, and she said, go up. So I remember climbing up this very, very high ladder. And I looked down, and again I told her my hands are wet. So another girl from the line said, if it's wet, don't go. And my friend said, keep quiet, don't make her scared, you just carry on. So I wiped my slippery palms on my clothing, and I decided to hold the bar, and it was hosepipe material. So can you imagine the grip? And I said, let's just get this over and done with. And boy, did I slid for about 2 seconds, and then I was on the ground, sitting position. And I was always calm by nature, and then a girl ran to me, and she's saying, Razia, just breathe. And I said, okay. And I tried. And it was wind block. I couldn't. And I'm talking to myself, and I said, let's try this again. Let's breathe. And again, wind block. Next thing I was, flat out, and I could hear a teacher saying, call for the ambulance. And I'm thinking, give me 10 minutes, I'll be fine. Little did I know the drama that would follow consequently. And I had to go to hospital, and then my friends were standing there with tears looking at me, all strapped up in my neck brace. And I said, relax. And I remember going to a chiro, and I didn't have physio one. I didn't have all the chiro. I actually ended up going to a chiro by the will of Allah, because somebody came to our baby shop. We had baby shops in Maritzburg at the time, and she said she was doing chakra healing and color therapy. So I said, this sounds interesting. I was nowhere near energy healing at that time. And so intuitively, I decided to just go with it. And she said it's the first time she had to ever give her client homework. And my homework was to go to a chiro. So I told him I had 3 fractures, and he requested x-rays, and he says, my dear, you have 5 fractures, and it is a miracle you are walking. And at the time I thought, okay, what's the big deal? I prayed. I told him I prayed, because he kept asking how, and I said I prayed. But now when I reflect and I realize, yes, prayer plus my belief, my affirmations, I knew I was so determined. There wasn't an atom of doubt about whether I'm going to walk again. And all of those is so important in creating your experience, creating your reality.
Wow, that's so inspirational. And I think with Allah's will, He puts us through things so we have a choice, but eventually we can help others.
Absolutely.
So thank you for sharing that. And I think the power of the mind is so amazing. You're absolutely right. The messages that we send. And I imagine if you took a negative stance, would your healing have been the way it was?
Absolutely not. Clearly not.
Right. And you said you work at a physical level and also an emotional level, and that brings us to, I think, physical injuries, yes, it's bad, but I think emotional stuff can be so much murkier and complicated.
Yes.
And they say no man is an island, but I think relationships, as much as they make us, they can be so complicated and so painful. And, it brings us to, and everybody comes up with their own baggage, with their own lenses, as you said. So living together in mutual relationships, I think, as I said, it has its perks and it has its challenges. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experiences with relationships.
Every relationship we experience, we do attract it for a reason, and it can come from our belief systems, our conditioning, our programming, our sense of self-worth, etc. So while some of them may be very painful, they come with profound lessons to help us to grow. And most of the time, people go through a divorce and are ready to jump into another relationship, ready for the next marriage, out of fear of being alone, and I can relate. But if we do not take that time out to stop, reflect, analyze what that painful lesson was meant to teach us, what within us needs to change, then life is very generous and will keep dishing out the similar experience in a different way until you learn what you needed to, and that in turn is meant to prepare you for something greater. So that healing period is very important, which we underestimate, and this is when we are able to let go of our baggage and not carry it forward into the next relationship. You can then enter in the new relationship with more emotional intelligence, growth, understanding, clarity, and maturity, and it can, inshallah, be a lasting and fulfilling one. Like many, there was a point in my life where I regretted certain relationships, but only when I came to accept that it was actually necessary and part of my journey could I flow in my personal awareness and growth. Self-forgiveness is key because we are so hard on ourselves. Regret keeps us stuck, but when we use cognitive reframing and view things from a different perspective, then we can actually find the hidden gems within that hurt and pain, and also see how the pieces of the puzzle come together. There's a summary of a hadith: only good happens to a believer, no bad. So as long as we believe, we know that there is khair in everything. We may not understand it at the time, but there is goodness in everything, no matter how bad it may seem.
Right. And I think you brought up a very important point, that you spoke about forgiveness. And I think it brings up something for me where they say forgiving, grudging someone is like punishing yourself for someone else's mistake.
Yes.
But I think let's just pause there. We're going to take a short ad break, and after this we'll discuss or go deeper into relationship. Okay, welcome back to our listeners to Mindful Matters. We were just talking to Razia Rangrage, who's a motivational life coach and cupping therapist and body talk practitioner, and we were talking about relationships. And sometimes speaking about these things can be quite uncomfortable. So we'll be as respectful as we can, and we're not going to take names or get into detailed. But I think it's important we speak about these uncomfortable, say, dilemmas or situations or events. And the one that I'm thinking about is divorce. And they say it's so rife in our community that 50% of marriages in this day and age end up in divorce, and that's quite scary. So I wonder if you're comfortable in telling us a little bit about, your experience or your opinion on this topic.
Okay, so I handle this very differently. When you understand energy, everything changes. So alhamdulillah, no one has said anything to my face. Behind my back, I'm sure some, many, or plenty, and that's okay. It is important for everyone to remember that whatever other people think of you is none of your business. We often hear this adage, but it is what I live by. The more we live in fear or fixated on what other people may think of us, the more of that exact experience or reality you will attract. Every time we have a thought, it creates an emotion, and there's a frequency, a charge attached to that emotion and given off, and that in turn will attract those things to you. So every thought consumes your energy. Everything is energy, so stop wasting it. You need to use that energy more productively to manifest what you want and where you are heading, and that is only within your control and your power. It is also important to remember that it is easier to judge other people than to go internally and do the inner work. And I say this with utmost respect, but that's why most people would rather take a sleeping tablet than to investigate and release what is niggling and disturbing the subconscious mind. This is serious work. It means finding out what is wrong with me. What do I need to work on within myself? Also, those who judge others are merely coming from their own framework of perception, and it is also a reflection of their own judgments within themselves. So every single person who goes through a divorce knows what happened behind closed doors, the very many efforts that they may have made to have saved the marriage, and what was the ultimate deciding factor. Only you know your journey. So to worry what others will think only makes you weaker and gives your power away, like the remote control example that you used. So for me, did I receive any stigma or understanding from the community? As harsh as this may seem or sound, they were not my focus. My focus was on my healing, my personal growth and transformation, acceptance, forgiveness and peace towards myself, my ex who is now marhum, towards my daughter and everyone else. Where focus goes, energy flows. And I was just so focused on that and in achieving certain things. And I kept going, achieving and ticking the list. To mention a few: establishing my practice, certifying as a body talk practitioner, becoming a life coach, and the very many courses in between, as well as finally completing and achieving my BCom Human Resource degree, and of course trying to be the best mum that I could be under the circumstances. Had I focused on how people viewed me, my energy would have been consumed there, and I would not have had much energy left to achieve everything that I have managed to so far, alhamdulillah. So don't focus on pleasing people, focus on pleasing Allah. Then you can focus on improving ourselves and also improving the scary statistics that we mentioned about marriage.
Right. And I have to agree with you in that it's so easy to blame others or to pick on flaws, and especially when at a time of divorce, emotions are very high and love turns to hate so quickly. And it's the more we care about each other, the more our remote control is sitting in their hand, right? So I think it's important that we also look at how not worrying about others, not worrying about picking on others, but focusing on self and reflecting can be so important. And I think also, I don't know if this is true or not, people say that women are sometimes harsh to women, or as a society, as a community, we as women are held accountable or questioned more, held responsible for the behavior of our partners or others. I don't know if you've experienced this.
So stereotypically, women are always the soft targets, be it in marriage, in relationships, in the work environment. And the more we reside in this consciousness, I think the more we strengthen it. And let's face it, most of the time we lose sight of the value Islam gives women, and we become very culturally indoctrinated. So we women and the society at large need to realize that marriage is a two-way contract. You need both hands to clap. You cannot clap with one hand. And there's many reasons why marriage may not work, but the blame game needs to stop. It just keeps us stuck in a victim-based consciousness, and hence will the statistics improve if we stay stuck? No. I don't believe that the husband or wife is bad. There is no such thing as a bad person. It is the actions that are bad or not good, as I prefer to say, power of words. So you can have a wonderful person or people, put them in a dynamic of marriage, and their personality or their conditioning and perception or trauma from past experiences makes it such that they just cannot cope within that dynamic or synergy. And then they act in ways that they would not ordinarily behave due to their triggers. And then it becomes a toxic relationship. Take them out of that dynamic and they may operate at a much healthier level. That's why the healing period and introspection after a divorce is very important. So how can we change that mindset of where we blame women or blame game? And that's exactly it, by stopping the blame game. Both need to address issues and aspects within themselves, else you would not have attracted the partners that they did. We need to shift focus from blame to growth. How can I grow from this? How can I become better? And this only comes with consciousness work, self-awareness, acceptance, forgiveness, and especially when children are involved. Please, my dear brothers and sisters who are listening, let's be the adults and the parents that we want our children to respect, to look up to emulate, and to be proud to call us their parents. Put your children first and your ego and your pride aside, because they are your amanat. You will be accountable for them. So even if you may be separated or divorced, still teach your children to have love and respect for other parents, because if you don't, you are actually in turn teaching them how to treat you. Everything always comes back.
I totally agree, and I think we've had this on a show previously as well, that divorce is one thing for the partners who are two hopefully equal parties and adults, but children have to go through so much, and it's so sad if they have to take on the parenting role or be the mature ones. And it brings me to the fact that I've heard you have a gorgeous little girl, and I've heard that you are, a single parent, and I'm sure that has additional stresses to it because you have to play the role of the provider, the nurturer, and, the one who gives love. So how are you coping? How does this work for you?
When Husna's dad was still alive, alhamdulillah, we both played our equal roles. We had a good parental understanding. He did his best for her. Now, without him, that male energy is lost and deeply felt. So managing the trauma of his loss. And then my dad's, which was only 6.5 months later, who also played a very huge role in her life, has been no easy task. I took her for play therapy, and now we're just continuing with body talk sessions. But فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا, with every difficulty is equal amount of ease. So even though we are tested, Allah still provides us with ease, and it's our duty to identify it. So am I really alone in this journey of motherhood? Maybe consciously, yes. But spiritually, no, because Allah is always with us, aiding us all the way. And if we can just step into that fact, you feel the lightness. And I'm filled with utmost gratitude to the amazing support system that we're surrounded by. And this includes my immediate family, my extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews on both sides, my mums and my marhum dads, Husna's marhum dad's family, as well as friends, my friends, their children. Even at Husna's school, she goes to Orient. So it's even her teachers, her principals, friends, her friends' parents. They're all very amazing. And I have to acknowledge that this is a ni'mah of Allah. And Allah says, وَلَا إِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. The more grateful you are to me, the more I will increase you in favors. So our focus has to always be on gratitude and not on the test of the pain. But now in a personal capacity, we as mothers have to keep working on ourselves internally so we can be the best role models for our children. Children just don't magically become the way they are. Environment shapes them. So how we are, how we speak, how we behave, etc., all forms part of their early childhood development. How can we help them? By being the best version of ourselves and giving them unconditional love. And I handle this really through tawakkul, trust that Allah put us through this test, and undoubtedly He will make the path easy.
Okay, that's lovely what you said, because I think it's such a common fact that children are not what we tell them to be. They are who we are. So we have to model it for them. I always tell my parents, don't scream at the child and say don't shout, because that's not going to work. And as you were listening, I've picked up a few of your coping skills, because I was like lending that ear, and I've picked up how faith has helped you, believing that there's a higher power, and whatever happens for a reason, and meaning can change any situation, no matter how dire.
Yes.
And also I heard you say having support structures in place, because no man is an island, and as complicated as relationships are, we have to be surrounded by people, positive people, or people that will understand us.
I think we all have support systems, but it's just the focus. Do you want to focus on that support that you actually have, or do you want to start focusing on where you're not getting the support?
Right.
So it comes back to focus as well.
Yeah, and nobody's perfect. So somebody may have some positive qualities and some negative, but if your remote control is in somebody else's hand, you're going to trigger even more.
Absolutely.
Or allow them that power. And also you said self-reflect, keep on bringing focus back to the self. What is going on here? Why am I reacting like this? You spoke about self-care, in that alhamdulillah you have achieved so much, but at certain times you would have to prioritize yourself and say, look, I'm doing this for the greater good.
Yes.
I need to focus on myself now.
Absolutely. And when we talk about ourselves, is it ego-based? And then often I bring in self-love into sessions. And some people get scared and they think it's ego, but really, if we don't have self-love within us, how can we resonate with it? So when it comes to us in the environment, how can we actually identify with it? Also, how can we really make dua and connect with Allah from a point of love if we don't have that self-love? And ego, on the other hand, is very different. Where is ego coming from? A facade, a fear. It's fear-based, because we need people to look at us in a certain way. If they don't see us in a certain way, then what? So these are two very different concepts.
Right, and I hear you, and I think self-love is so important to understand, because it is not conditional, in that Allah has created you, and by the fact that you are, you love yourself, and it's just as simple as that.
Absolutely. And you love yourself out of gratitude.
Right.
Out of gratitude, because who created you? And if you are denying and rejecting yourself, who are you actually rejecting?
Right. And I think, alhamdulillah, we've covered so many tips, and I think if people are listening with the listening ear, inshallah, they should learn a lot from this talk. And I have to say that it's very courageous to share one's story. So Jazakallah for sharing your story with us. We're just going to pause for a quick ad break, and after this we will announce our winners of an Instagram competition that we had held. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Mindful Matters. So we have a little guest in studio with us today, and that's my 9-year-old son Muhammad Osman. And Muhammad's very excited. He wanted his opportunity to talk, so he's here to steal my thunder. Welcome, Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so we had a competition on Instagram. Both Razia and I were giving off one session with us, and we randomly chose 2 people. So posters will go out on Instagram to inform them, but Muhammad will read out the names. So Muhammad, who won the competition for Auntie Razia, the life coach?
Tasneem Subratri.
Okay, so I hope you all heard that, guys. Tasneem Subratri, congratulations. You've got an amazing session with an amazing therapist, Razia Rangrage, and she will get a hold of you and let you know about those details. And who's won the session with Imam Muhammad?
Nasira J.
Okay, so Nasira J. Nasira, I don't know what your surname was. I'm just using your Insta panhandle, but we will get a hold of you and work out times and place and the rest of that. So congratulations to our winners. Posters will be put up and you will be notified. Okay, so next week we have another interesting topic, and that is toxic relationships with life coach, motivational speaker and author Nadira Chipper. So to round up today's show, I would like to read a poem by, oh God, I can't pronounce this name, but whoever this person is, credit goes to you. And it goes like this. Nobody escapes being wounded. We are all wounded people, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually. The main question is not how can we hide our wounds, so we don't have to be embarrassed, but how can we put our woundedness in the service of others? When our wounds cease to be a source of shame and become a source of healing, we have become wounded healers. And as the Quran promises, indeed what is coming will be better for you than what has gone by. Assalamu alaikum, and I hope this show lived up to its promise to inspire, educate and motivate. And remember, be mindful, be kind and enjoy the rest of your week.